Why do you think this city can't seem to catch a break? Like, I still can't get over what happened on Saturday night for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I had 2 beer, I think, total at the game, and I felt like it was a 20 shot, like, 1998 Cancun night for me. I was there, and, I was sitting in a section of all season ticket holders, and look, at everybody felt the pain across the country, but I felt so much for these guys who've been coming, the 2 guys next to me have been coming 20 years season ticket holders, same seats. And the pain that first of all, it was like, and I'll fully admit, like, I've been bandwagoning, I really didn't get on board with this team till probably late August. And I was like living and dying with every pitch like everybody else. So I just can't imagine these folks and it was just, I just, I think if you could have a heartbreak measurer, it would be the amount of moments that could have gone the other way. And I think there must be a dozen of, like, 2-inch or one pitch moments in this game that if they go slightly the other way, the Jays win the World Series. I was thinking, I'm a Niners fan. When the Niners lost the last Super Bowl in overtime to the Chiefs, it was a game like that. I went back afterwards and thought of 15 different plays that if they went the Niners' way, they win the Super Bowl. And that was the way it was for the Jays. And I can't imagine. I tweeted this the other day. Like, I play like beer league football, and I still think about like painful last second losses that happened in like a city championship. So I can't imagine going through the rest of your career in life, you know, with, like Ernie Clement was so great, and that ball's 1 inch to the left or the right, and it hits the wall, or that center fielder who came in doesn't come over and get it. And the forced play at home, which I think is the worst. I've been haunted about that for 24 hours, because if he had a 6-inch bigger lead, and he should have, by the way, I don't want to put it on one guy, but it's just like when you have all those moments that you can go over and over, that's what makes it more painful. I was saying to my buddies yesterday, if the Jays had lost in 5 in the World Series, I think it would have been so much more palatable, because you would have said, what an unbelievable season. And man, the Dodgers are just so good. Even maybe if they'd lost like 6-1 in game 7, you would have said, wow, again, what a great season. Tough to blow a 3-2 lead, but the Dodgers are incredible. But to have it happen in that way, and a roundabout way of getting to your question, Toronto just finds a way to lose in the most tortuous ways in sport. Like, all teams have, crippling losses, but Toronto losses are always just in the most painful. Tease that you have it, make people believe that you have it, and then it gets snatched away. And that's a tough thing. I just feel so bad for all those players and all the fans.
One difference I thought about it is that how proud everybody is of that team and what they did. And yes, I agree with you, with the margins being that thin and then being that close, it
Hmm.
probably makes it hurt more. But we've seen in the past in Toronto some disgusting losses and some egregious,
Right. This
blowing
wasn't like
of
games.
series.
Well, this wasn't like the Leafs in the spring, right? The way they lost those 2 games against Florida. And you're so right. And the other thing,
And
Jay,
maybe
is
we can
like,
find some solace in that, right?
yeah, and when I did, I think I said something like, "I've never been more heartbroken for a team," which I felt that way for all those players. But I get like Mariner fans writing me and saying, "Try being us," who've never got there, right? Like, who've always been
Hmm.
close, never got there. And you have to think of that. As much as Toronto fans think they're cursed, well, the Blue Jays won the American League pennant. Teams haven't got there. The Raptors did win the NBA championship just a few years ago. So it's not like those cities who just have perennial losers forever and ever and never get it done. There's a lot of good here, but it is incredible how they find more painful ways to lose.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. And I was saying over the weekend, I'm not really an emotional person. I was just overwhelmed with emotion. I wasn't even at the game. I'm like, I've been waiting my whole life as a baseball fan first before anything and playing the sport just to see a Blue Jays team win the World Series. Although I was young, 92, 93, I'm an 89 born. And just to
Yeah.
see it snatched away really, really hurt. I mean, focusing more on the Maple Leafs, I truly feel like they can learn a lot from this run for the Blue Jays in terms of playing as a team. The Blue Jays are everything we want the Maple Leafs to be, I think, Duthie.
Yeah. Sorry, one more thing on it too. When you were mentioning 92, 93, so I was an Expos fan first. And that was when I was a kid, baseball was my favorite sport. I listened to every single Expos game in the radio in French when I didn't really understand half of it. And I was a teenager when Rick Monday hit the home run in 1981. I think it was it was the final game of the NLS. I think it was only a 5-gamer back then. And this weekend really brought me back to that because it was the Dodgers, and because it was like those 3 home runs, it was like kind of Rick Monday times 3, right? In the way they ate away, the one off Savage, and then the one off Hoffman, and then the game when he won. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that the reason it hurts as well is because the city and the country fell in love with this team so much because it was so likable. Like just everything about them, the way Vladdy played this year, guys like Ernie Clement, who just were so easy to fall in love with. And I mean, I think there have been likable Leaf teams. I mean, every Jay Rosehill team, extremely likable.
Not really.
But you know what I mean? Like, I don't think, and perhaps it's just a result of, what's happened in the playoffs the last, whatever it is, 9 years. I'm not sure that the fan base has loved a Leafs team at all like the way they love the Jays. And I would have said that even if they lost in the ALCS or whatever, even if they'd gone out in the playoffs. There was something about this team that I think all the stuff that the guys said about how much they loved each other was genuine. It doesn't always happen in baseball, by the way. There's tons of egos in baseball. And I think there's a lot of teams where it's a very individualistic team. So it's rare that this happens. I'd love to see a Leafs team that the fan base truly fell in love with, not just because they got through the first round or the second round, but just because of the way they are. I don't think we're at that point right now with this group. And no offense to this group, they can change that during the season. But I don't know how Nick, I don't know how you manifest that. It just sort of has to happen naturally, and it has to be the personalities. So it's possible, and it has to be in the way they play. And certainly we're not seeing that so far as a whole.
Yeah, and you mentioned they're not there yet. Obviously, a work in progress. We knew some changes were coming after this summer, and patience might have to be a key in it. But what do you take so far after their 6-5-1 start?
I don't think we know who they are. I don't think they know who they are. The slow starter thing has kind of happened fairly often with this group, and I think that part of it. This is my own theory that people might scoff at, but I honestly think that part of it is when you make the playoffs every year and then you have the heartbreak that you've had every single year in the playoffs, that there is a bit of a psychological hurdle to leap at the beginning of the season when you know that, first of all, you always expect you're going to be in the playoffs, and you know that all that matters, no matter how great a season you have, is going to be what you do in May and hopefully at some point June, but late April and May for now. And so I do think that is a hurdle to get over to start the season, that, oh my God, we got 6 months here before it really matters to us. And again, that's just my own take on things, that they're slower starters because of that it takes a little more to get over the hangover of what happened last spring. Now, the danger in that now, I think they've always had enough talent that you could overcome the slow starts, no problem. They were always going to be good enough to make the playoffs just on pure talent. And the way the division has changed, that might be a question this year. I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs for sure. But I think the Atlantic has the possibility of being full-scale nutso, in the sense that, there are signs that obviously Buffalo and Detroit might be better. And at some point, Florida might take a little bit of a drop here just because they played so much hockey and the Barkov injury and so on. Tampa's kind of been up and down so far, rolling a little bit. And Ottawa's kind of Ottawa's kind of what the Leafs have done so far. They've been completely erratic so far, but I think you have the potential there for a division where we could get to March and you might have 6 teams within 5 or 6 points of one another, which would be really fun, but a lot dicier than the Leafs have had in recent memory. And so that's the danger of a slow, sort of sluggish start this year, unlike other years where you knew the talent would eventually overcome. This year, you never know. Like, you cannot take it for granted, and there's a possibility they'll be in a real race for the playoffs come the end of the year. So, long-winded way of saying I don't know what they are. They're giving up, when you're 28th in the league or whatever it is at goals against, and it's more than a half a goal a game more than last year. And, your starter who has had the best save percentage in the league, like for the last 2 years among semi-regular goalies, is somewhere around 890 or whatever it is. You can't have those things. And when you have a power play with that much talent that's also down 28th or 29th or whatever it is in the league at 12.5%, you can't have any of those things and expect to just cruise and be in first or second place. So, and obviously, I'm sort of elephant in the room is that Matthews has not been nearly good enough. And he's got to prove that it's not just Marner missing as the reason.
Much better Saturday night, Austin Matthews. We'll see what he brings forth here for this
Yeah, I
game
was.
against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But
And by the
the
way,
one,
full
yeah,
disclosure, missed that game completely. Tried to catch up and watch it on fast forward yesterday before I watched NFL. So I watched it in about a half an hour, but I was like everybody else who was, I felt a little guilty because completely tuned into the Jays. But yeah, they did look
no,
better.
it's fair. I said I was one of 20 to watch the game. I had the dual screen going. I watched the game at home. It's
I wonder
tough for
what
me to watch
I'd
big
be
games.
curious in the ratings. I don't get caught up in ratings much, but for a Saturday night, that's probably going to be the lowest rated Leafs game on a Saturday night in a long time,
I would think
for
so.
good reason.
Has to
And it's
be. Has to be.
probably a big break for them, the Jays, because of the way they played so far, right? To sort of not be noticed is
Yeah.
probably a good thing for how bad that start was.
I wanted to ask you about the pressure as well in the market. Do you feel like there's patience? Like the one thing I've been thinking about a lot the last week with the struggles early on in the season, at which point are the players to blame? Like, you've been around for a long period of time covering various different sports over your illustrious career. When do you blame the players? Can you blame the players? Because how many coaches, GMs are they going to go through in this market? It's the same old same with this team.
Oh, I think you're 100% at the point you can. That doesn't mean 100% falls on the players. You can still, uh, and again, I temper all of this with the little asterisk above my shoulder that I still think it's super early, and
Yeah.
so we shouldn't be sitting here doing a complete rip job on the Leafs. But
Mhm.
if they were 3-9-2 or something like that, but whatever it is, 6-5-1 is not awful. And I think they're 7th as we talk right now, and they win tonight and they're 3rd. That's how goofy the Atlantic is right now. But um, oh yeah, 100%. Like, you can get on Brad Treliving for maybe the acquisitions aren't working so far, and you can get on Berube, but I think it's crazy not to blame the players at some point. And I don't really feel like they haven't been blamed over the years. I think they've gotten their share of it for the failures, and they deserve it. I always feel like, a coach is 10% of it. Obviously, the personnel that you acquire is a big chunk, maybe let's say 25-30% of it or whatever. But because there's only 2 or 3 changes in an off season, it percentage doesn't probably work that high. But I always think the players are probably 70% of it. And when you get to the playoffs, it's probably 90% of it. So I think it's 100% right to blame the players for the way it is right now. And every single one of them would agree to that and say they know they have to be better. As for the pressure in the market, it is funny. I always gauge my golfing buddies at my golf course who are, there's a big group chat. All they've been talking about is the Jays for the last 3 weeks, but it usually will be about the Leafs. And, they're, it's pretty ugly right now as far as these guys suck. These guys are terrible. You guys know what it's like, right? And they don't suck, and they're not terrible. They're 6-5-1, and they haven't looked great. They look better on the weekend, and we'll see if they get it together or not. And it's no different that the same group chat, if they were 9-2-1 right now, would be getting ready for the parade. So
Well, you do
Be
know
tough
their
to deal with
history,
that.
that's for sure. Duth, you got a
Yeah,
lot of
I mean,
history in the
that's
game. You're writing books about them right now. Tell us about your latest here, and plug your book a little bit. I imagine it'll be a hell of a good read.
oh, thank you, brother. And I actually was, uh, you're an omission that I, yeah, I sort of make this write down list of guys that I would like to have stories from in my book, and then I never get to half of them. And you were on that list, and part of it is because when you write a book like this, and it's called Certified Beauties, it's a sequel to a book I wrote a few years ago called Beauties. Sorry, product placement.
Hmm.
And my idea was I was reading a couple of hockey biographies a few years ago, I think during COVID when I was bored, and they're all great, but usually there's like two or three awesome stories in the book, and then you get the rest is kind of like the life story. I grew up in a small town and all that, and I thought, what if you could cut out everything else and only put great stories in the book? So my idea was that I would go to guys and say, like, if I went to Jay, if it was Nick and Jay and I sitting in a bar, and we said, Jay, tell me your favorite story from your career. I don't care if it's the craziest game you played in. I don't care if it was something that happened in the dressing room or on a road trip. Just tell me the story that you would tell your best buddies. And that was kind of the premise for it. Beauties did pretty well, and so we decided to do a sequel. But what I was getting at was I make this list, and then I'll talk to somebody, and they'll say, you got to talk to this guy or this guy. So I'll get onto this guy or that guy, and then they'll say, you got to talk to this guy or this guy. And then suddenly I'm done the book with 50 more guys that I wanted to talk to. So if I do another one, if Jay doesn't mind, I'll have to look him up, because I do find that, like everything else in life, like the tough guys, there'll be a disproportionate amount of tough guys in my book because they're the greatest characters and usually tell the greatest stories. So it's a really fun book, good bathroom reading, short little chapters that you can put up
Love that.
and put.
Awesome.
It's great.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.